So, something happened in my last Spanish lesson that caught me off guard. Not because I said something impressive, but because the nerves, they were just gone. And when that happened, I realized this wasn't about grammar or speed or even confidence. It was about recognition, confidence. So the nerves fade before skill arrives. And if you asked me a year ago, I would have guessed that nerves only disappeared once you're fluent. Once you can rattle off sentences without a second thought. Most people buy into that idea. We think we're supposed to be nervous until we've earned comfort, until we've put in months or years of practice. But what actually happened in my fourth lesson turned out that I turned that belief on its head. The first few times I met with my coach, I was tense, was worried about every single mistake, second guessed myself before speaking. I felt that tightness in my throat every time the conversation went off script. I even prepped myself. I started to freeze up, translating everything in my head, afraid to hear what I sounded like. And I figured that this was just the price of being a beginner. But then by lesson 4, something shifted. We weren't covering anything advanced, just daily routines, talking about waking up, eating breakfast, the usual. But for the first time, I noticed that I wasn't nervous. My heart wasn't racing, wasn't obsessing over grammar. I was just there. And the crazy thing is that my Spanish wasn't suddenly perfect, okay? Still had to search for words. Some sentences came out super slow. Some were even wrong, of course. But the difference was I wasn't panicking. And why? Because my brain recognized the territory. I'd already been exposed to these ideas passively. Watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading basic stories. My brain had seen these patterns before, and that familiarity took the pressure off. I could focus on communicating, not performing. This is the huge misconception in language learning. People think that nerves go away after the skill arrives, but comfort actually shows up first. So if you let it, you don't have to wait to be good to stop feeling nervous. You just need enough exposure, enough recognition to trust that you're capable of surviving the conversation. That's progress. This is why in the language operating system, I always separate recognition confidence from output skill. Most people who think that they're bad at speaking aren't struggling with ability. They're struggling with unfamiliarity. Their brain just hasn't seen enough of the patterns yet. Once you get used to operating on that terrain, the anxiety fades, even if the skill isn't perfect. It's like a total game changer once you start thinking like this. You might be thinking, that's all well and good, but what if my nerves never go away? What if I'm just not a language person? So here's the thing. The nerves are a signal that something is unfamiliar, not that you're incapable. The more you show up passively, the more familiar it gets, unless your brain treats it as a threat. You can build comfort before you build skill. So here's the reframe. Comfort is a byproduct of familiarity, not mastery. You don't have to wait until you're fluent to feel at ease. You just have to keep showing up until your brain realizes that it's safe. So patterns reduce cognitive load. Every language learner dreads the moment when grammar starts looking like math, when you hit those long, intimidating explanations about verb forms, tense, especially things like reflexive verbs. On paper, reflexive verbs in Spanish seem like they're a maze. Then there's me, te, se, and suddenly every action is just being done to yourself. For a second, it feels like you're back at square one. That was the focus in my fourth lesson, reflexive verbs. At first, I felt like they were familiar but overwhelming, and then we started talking through their daily routines, waking up, getting dressed, brushing your teeth. I noticed something, that these verbs always showed up in the same places. The more I listened, the more I realized they weren't random at all. They were patterns. Once I started spotting these patterns, everything just clicked a lot faster. My coach expected me to, slow down here and there. Honestly, so did I. Instead, because my brain recognized the structure, I kept pace. Didn't have to think about every single word. I could lean on the pattern. Me despierto, I wake up. Me visto, I dress myself. Me baño, I bathe myself. These aren't just rules to memorize. They're shortcuts, hardwired into the language, into your brain. Suddenly, it wasn't just about remembering hundreds of individual facts or words. It's about seeing the logic behind them. This is one of the ways language can actually get easier the more you do it. Patterns reduce the cognitive load, making thinking cheaper. You keep recognizing structure. Your brain spends less energy figuring out how to build a sentence. Instead, it focuses on what you want to say. This is why I always think about the importance of pattern recognition. It's not about knowing every rule. It's about knowing which shortcuts you can trust. Our brains are just wired to look for patterns, and once we find them, we process information faster with less effort. It's the same reason you don't have to think when tying your shoes or driving a familiar route. So the pattern's locked in, brain can relax and figure out new things. I know some people are worried about patterns are just like lazy shortcuts or something. What if I miss something? But here's the thing about patterns. They don't replace understanding. They build the foundation for it. They free up brain power so you can tackle more complex things when you're ready. Even native speakers, they rely on patterns too. That's why language feels so natural to them. So next time you hit a new grammar topic or it feels overwhelming, look for the patterns. You notice where they show up in daily routines, repeated actions, common phrases. The more you spot them, the less mental energy you'll burn, and the more automatic your language will become. Patterns don't make you lazy, they make you more efficient. So before my fourth Spanish lesson, I felt a familiar swirl of nerves and doubt. I had a busy week, and honestly, I couldn't remember every detail of what we covered before. So I kept thinking, did I practice enough? Am I gonna embarrass myself? And even though I'd shown up 3 lessons already, part of me still expected to freeze or forget everything. At the moment the call started, that's what anxiety does. It makes you second guess your progress and turns even ordinary conversations into potential minefields. But as soon as my coach popped onto the screen, something unexpected happened. We started talking. Instead, feeling that the usual jolt, panic, I just settled in. He asked me about my day. For the first time, I didn't freeze. I didn't scramble to translate every word in my head. And I didn't worry about sounding perfect. I just answered like I would in English. No internal delay, no mental gymnastics. The conversation found its own rhythm. And I let myself trust that whatever Spanish I had was enough. That was the moment the realization crept in, and I'm not nervous anymore. I could just respond naturally without bracing for impact. We talked about breakfast. He told me about traditional Colombian breakfast. It was like with chocolate, coffee, I think, like caldo de Castilla, and there's like other good sounding dishes I shared. I also shared what passed for like a classic American breakfast, but we both laughed because we realized that our actual routines were pretty much the same. It was just eggs, coffee, water, but the different countries with like the same reality. What hit me was how quickly the nerves had just faded. Way before I felt fluent. My Spanish was still slow, made mistakes, but I didn't feel judged. And I didn't judge myself. My coach didn't stop me for every single error. He let me finish, corrected me gently, and just moved on. That's comfort, being able to make mistakes in front of someone else and know it's not a big deal. Transformed everything, and language stopped being a test and started being a bridge. By the end of that lesson, he told me that we can keep on building sentences, focusing on speaking, not just grammar drills. And that mattered to me because always learn best by doing, not by memorizing the rules. I don't even know all the grammar rules in English, and I'm here using it every single day. Spanish started feeling the same way. The more I use it, the less I worry about getting it right. Mistakes feel like data, not like failure. They're signs I'm actually using the language in real time. This lesson taught me something I think every language learner needs to hear. Language isn't about sounding foreign or impressive. It's about discovering similarities faster, about finding places where your life overlaps with someone else's. So the nerves fade when you realize you don't have to put on a show. You just have to show up. The social part, the human part, is what makes learning stick. If you want to build this kind of comfort, just try this. Next time someone asks you, how was your day, in your target language, answer immediately. Don't try to be perfect. Don't rehearse. Just say something, anything, even if it's wrong. Let yourself get corrected, move on. That tiny act of putting yourself out there is what rewires your brain. It tells you that it's safe to speak, safe to make mistakes, safe to be seen as a learner. Language learning doesn't have to be isolating. It only feels that way when you keep it internal. We're always practicing alone, wanting to be ready. But the minute you start letting it be social, even imperfectly, it becomes grounding, comforting, human. You stop trying to be the fastest learner, the most accurate speaker, and you start becoming someone who can actually connect. That's really the whole point. Right now, this process feels less like studying and more like becoming. That's a shift I never really saw coming. This lesson reminded me that language learning doesn't have to be isolating. It only feels isolating when you keep it internal. Once you start letting it be social, even imperfectly, it becomes grounding, comforting, human, I'm not trying to be the fastest learner. I'm trying to become someone who can connect. And right now, this process feels like less like studying and more like becoming. By the way, no pressure, but there's a link underneath this video where you can have a look at my paid programs. When you trust me enough and feel like my free content has changed your life, you can have a look at that.